think nothing of saying, I wonder what reason I was born. It doesn't even occur to you not to ask that. Not at all. For you, going in the world behind your eye is ordinary space. For you, the inner frontier is the new frontier. Going into the soul has become the new normal. But the old idea of God does not work for the depth charges of how we need to understand the nature of God that matches what we're discovering about the soul. Now, I realize that probably for most of you, the idea of the soul as a companion or an active part of your life is such an outrageous idea. Most of you maybe not even think of the soul as just a word, or you don't think of it at all, actually. But that's not smart. The soul is your nuclear power battery. It's actually your life battery. And the more I've worked with healing, the more I realize, healing is not the enterprise of the mind, it's the enterprise of the soul. It is the soul's task to heal. It is the soul in you that has the power to generate and accomplish a task that doesn't make sense to the mind. And that's what true healing is. Now, for me personally, you know that I have a background in medical intuition and healing. Okay. I never expected that background would cross and collide with my personal spiritual life. I never, ever, ever did. For me personally, my spiritual path was my business, not yours. And I would never have even thought to share it with anybody. I mean, I spent years studying theology with the most brilliant Jesuits you can possibly imagine. None of them told me about chakras. None of them told me how well organized the soul was. Like, where were they? Where did this technical soul come from? And then I start doing medical intuitive readings. And by the way, let me point out something. I never wanted to be a medical intuitive. It never even occurred to me. I didn't even know what it was. I just discovered I could. But I was good at it. And as I did that, I became better at it, and then better, and then really good. And then the rest of my life took flight from that direction. My absolute fascination was with God, not with healing, with God, and with all things possible in the invisible world. Now, that was a world I understood. But now I was coming at it through my bio-spiritual ecology. As I looked at healing, as I started to ask questions, I first started to ask, why don't people heal? Then I started to ask, what is healing? How can people heal? And that brought me to the laws of the universe. And what I began to realize was that everything in this universe, everything is organized around laws. Now, that may be totally obvious to the scientist. It may be totally obvious to you. It was an epiphany. An epiphany is one of those awakenings that's more than boy, I get it. An epiphany is when all 7 of your chakras, right down to your soul, not just gets it, but it reorders your understanding of your own universe. You get it so deeply that your rapport with all things alive is shifted in the blink of a holy eye. So when I say to you that I understood that God was law, I saw it everywhere. I saw it in the organization of our biophysical design. I saw it in nature. Disease is organized by law. This is the laws of cancer. If we didn't have laws there, we wouldn't be able to heal anything. I saw it in the laws of science and action and reaction, cause and effect, the laws of sensing, the laws of physics, the laws of the planets, the laws of the orbits. Gravity for everything is law. And then I understood that in the nature of God, of course it's law. Because law has no religion. Law is consistent. You can count on law. And therefore you can count on the nature of God. And then that's when the teachings of Jesus and Buddha and the mystical traditions of Hinduism and the mystical traditions of the Upanishads and all the great scriptures just lined up in my head. And I've got a big archive up here. They just went, and the laws came out. Everything lined up, even back down to Plato and Pythagoras, Aristotle, mathematics, because that is the nature of God. Now then, let's calm down and get into you. Now I want to take you by the hand. I want to walk you into your soul. This is going to be the new theology. This is going to be how you will know the nature of God. The nature of God is going to be known to us through the bio-spiritual ecology of who we are, of how we understand our health. As we learn the laws of science, they are a mirror of the mystical laws of heaven. These teachings are everywhere. What I do to the least of my brethren, I do to everybody. What Buddha says, what happens in one is in the whole of everything. Now, as a medical intuitive and someone who's deeply committed to your healing, as well as my own, one of the core mystical laws is that all is one. And you know what? That sounds great on paper, right? All is one. Oh yeah, I get that. Well, you're gonna get it really good because it is a biological truth. If I said to you, look, you know what? Your kidney is really sick. I've got some medicine here, but it's gonna blow out your heart. But hey, your kidney is gonna be fine. Would you take that medicine? Absolutely not. You would say, do you got anything that will treat the whole of me? Because you're already operating on that mystical truth and that scientific truth, that law, that all is one. You don't get that that law is already commanding you. Why? It is one of the fundamental truths of this era that we are shifting to. It's already part of your bio-spiritual theology. Get used to that word. Your theology, your ecological theology. The time has come for the greater truth, which is all is one, to become an active force in our thinking, and for the nature of God to become an active principle in our politics, in our biology, in our thought process, to become an actual building block of life itself, so that theology is no longer in a building, but in our body and in our actions, so that we actually get all is one. And that if I violate that, I pay for it with my health. I pay for it in my body. It is no longer something that I just get an option to believe. My body will break down if I do not honor all is one, because it is a bio-spiritual, mystical law. That is organic theology. That is God in my blood and in my bones. And that is the new theology. That is where we're going. In this great transition we're going through, and I realize I'm throwing a lot at you, but one of the things we do as we change eras of consciousness and historic eras is that we toss out words. We throw out old vocabulary. Who uses the word train car anymore, or covered wagon? But we have thrown out a lot of essential words, holy language that is essential to the navigation of your soul. It's one thing to throw out words as we maneuver from leaving behind traditions whose time has come to release. But it's another thing to let words go that we must have to navigate the soul. As we maneuver into this era of organic theology, we must keep our feet on sacred ground and remain humble and take some essential words with us. For example, those holy rituals that we must have, like the sacraments. They're not social rituals, they're holy soul rituals. I have seen people not heal because they can't forgive. They just can't forgive. They tell me, well, I'm working on it. How do you work on forgiveness? You either do or you don't. Because with forgiveness, the issue is not that they can't forgive, it's vengeance. I still am imagining how I want to just punish that person. And I've said to audiences, you're using the wrong language. You're not using holy language. I want you to really pull up the thing you can't forgive. Whatever it is happened to you. And so often someone will tell me, well, they apologized, but I can't forgive them. And what is it that you can't let go of? The reason you can't forgive is because in that moment, you actually realize that a person rarely means, I didn't mean to hurt you. What you sense is, in addition to what they've actually done, they're lying to you. What you know in that micro instant of interaction is, I actually know you had an option to choose otherwise, but you didn't, and you're not admitting that. So now let me give you the word that you need. What is a sin? Now that sounds like an archaic, oh, don't pull out that Catholic word, Carol. Don't go there. Yes, I'm pulling out that word. But I'm pulling out that word as an archetype, as a vocabulary that does not belong to Catholicism. It belongs to the soul. To the soul. What is a sin? Do you know what a sin is? A sin is something that when somebody consciously, here's the operative word, consciously chooses to do something, and they know for a fact that this action is going to harm someone else. They know that what I choose to do will adversely harm that person or those people, and it doesn't stop me. So it is my conscious choice to hurt another person's life. That's not a boo-boo. That's not a Jesus, that's a bummer. No, it's not. That's the conscious action to initiate evil. And if someone came up to you and said, I have to talk to you, I apologized and I said I didn't mean to do something, but you know what the truth is? I was conscious of it. I knew it would harm you, and it didn't stop me. I sinned against you. My soul harmed your soul, and it was a sin. Holy language has the power to heal wounds that ordinary language cannot heal, because it carries grace. As we move into this shift, I would ask you to dwell on the nature of God in a very different light. Don't tell yourself that you don't need God, because it's not true. You just make sure you think There is something greater than me in this universe to which I am accountable, because there is. And then call it whatever you want. But in this impersonal universe, I'm going to tell you something. What makes it personal is prayer. And whether or not you get it, every prayer is heard. Every single prayer. Because every thought is an act of creation. We ought to consider every thought as a prayer and become very, very mindful of the quality of our thought and how we think about others and the power we have to convey love and support, even within the silence of the thoughts that we transmit to each other. This is the era of the soul. We are discovering that our soul is our greatest spiritual ally, and that is the truth.